Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, and glad to be American, proud to be American, even though there's a lot of bad things going on in this country right now. As promised, we've got a special guest, or a special guest, I should actually say. He's a regular guest now. I think that this is, if I'm not mistaken, his fourth time on the show, which makes him puts him at the top of the leaderboard there. And very proud to say that, yes, it's Todd Wood joining us again. He's been on twice for the two books that he's written. And also once we were talking about currency and other issues, if I remember rightly. And we're going to do the same again tonight. As you know, his background was currency trading. And now with the debt ceiling limit, I think it's a very opportune time to do that. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring Todd in. Todd, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stefan. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me back. It's always a good time.
And before we get started, just a reminder, Todd is indeed now an author. He has been a currency trader, but he's now an author. Two great books. The first one was Currency, which kind of describes a little bit where we are today. And the other one, Sugar, which was lots of twists and turns in it, also kind of a sequel to the first book, but stands alone in its own right as with some very interesting twists and turns in that book.
Well, thank you, Stefan. I'm working on a third book. It's called Delta, and if you know anything about mathematics, which most people do, it means change. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, and I think last time when we were speaking about sugar, you mentioned Delta and said it started off in Rome. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure my other people are looking forward. My other listeners are looking forward to it as well. However, tonight, I think it would be good to kind of fall back on your original trade, currency trading, the world of high finance, because, in the last couple of weeks, they came to some sort of agreement on the debt ceiling. I think it's a very bad one, and there's not much noise being made about it in any media, whether it's the lamestream media or even the ones that are supposed to be on our side. But I think it has significant implications. But you as a currency and financial person can probably tell us a lot more. Let's first of all, before we go into the bad side of things, let's talk about, we do have a deal, so we're good for the next 3 or 4 months. Is that good? Is that bad? How does the rest of the world see us?
Well, we obviously have a huge conflict going on in this country between people who want to turn it into a socialist nirvana, and people who believe in self-reliance and paying your bills and balancing your budget and mundane things like that. And frankly, I don't really, from my perspective, I don't care what the rest of the world sees or thinks of us, because this battle has to be fought, and if it's not won, then we're going to have serious problems and may not survive as we know the country to be. So the battle is being waged, bit by bit at the apple, if you will, and the deal that has come out of this round is interesting. And I think that, one, there's a lot of confusion on the debt ceiling itself and the language in the bill. I was doing some reading earlier today, and still there's a lot of people can read it two ways. One way you can read it to mean the president can just raise the debt ceiling himself, and Congress would have to, pass a bill saying they didn't want that to happen, and then the president could override it. And from what I read, that is true, but the question is as to how long that will last, if there's a time limit on that part of the bill. So that's a question that's going to need to be answered. And you're right that the media has not been dealing with this, issue at all. I wrote a column for Newsmax last week that, if you were an alien that came down on the planet 3 weeks ago, you would think that there is one party who just wants to get their way, and if they don't get their way, they're going to destroy the government and default and ruin the credit rating of the United States. There's no one talking about, the real issue, which is solvency of the country.
And so, I agree with you to a certain extent of, we've got to get our house in order, and it doesn't really matter what the rest of the world thinks of us. On the other hand, the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. And if we were to lose that status, that could have a huge impact on the value of the dollar. And if the value of the dollar were to drop, and I say a huge impact, it's not as if it's going to go to zero, but looking back at the UK, for example, and you're talking about 10, 15, 20% drop in value, and that means everything is going to get that much more expensive. And it isn't just imported goods, because we import so much of our energy, so that will go up. And, all the oil that's coming in, that gets translated into the trucks. And because we ship most everything via trucks, then those costs are going to go up. So everything in the store is going to go. I mean, it could have a huge, huge impact. I mean, am I kind of doom and gloom? Am I being too negative on that? Or how do you see that?
No, I completely agree with you, and I think we're talking. I mean, I probably wasn't as clear as I should be. I completely agree that the loss of reserve currency status of the U.S. dollar is a huge negative for this country, and most people really don't understand what that would do and how it would impact us, and they just don't understand how the dollar is used around the world in trade and as a reserve currency. I guess what I was trying to say is that I don't really care if the world sees us fighting, because this battle has to be won, because it's not won, then the debt is going to explode even further, and the loss of the reserve currency and status and a default and all the bad things that come with just overwhelming debt will come just that much quicker. So I think the world does not see the real picture of what's happening here, and as a fiscal conservative, I would like the rest of the world to see the full picture and the real argument as to what we're fighting for. It's not just that we want our way and, we're going to shut down and make the government default. It's that we are concerned about the solvency of the country in the long run. And that is the real issue, because the default's going to happen. Right now we have 10 times the amount of money coming in revenue every year to cover our debt service costs. But look 10, 20, 30 years down the road, when we're at $40, $50 trillion in debt, we're not going to be able to service that debt. Rates are going to be much higher, and that's when the real default is going to happen. So this argument is in this battle is trying to prevent that longer-term problem, in my opinion.
Oh, and I agree completely with you, even though I may take the contrary argument occasionally just to kind of confirm things, but no, I agree with you completely on that. And I think and we talked earlier, just to let my listeners know, we did talk earlier, and one of the things we said that this whole thing also leads to, of course, is the whole media side of things, where the American public's not getting told the right story, and everything is different. So, as you said, it is that group over there trying to stop the government, trying to shut it down, this, that, and the other. But we're doing it for good reason, and they're not being told what that good reason is.
You're exactly right, and I don't know any other way to combat that corruption except to just not give that side of the media any credibility or any more than they deserve. And hopefully your listeners will be using alternative forms of media like your show to try to get the real story. And that's part of the battle, is fighting that corruption economically by not giving them ratings. And you're seeing it happen already, but we really need to be diligent about not feeding that animal or that machine of corruption by watching their shows or whatever. That's my opinion. I don't know how else to combat it, because you don't want the government passing laws saying, what was it called, the Fairness Doctrine or whatever, a few years back, when the liberals were all against talk radio and Rush Limbaugh and all that, and that you don't want it coming from a government edict. I think the only way to defeat it is economically.
Agreed. And, because the other thing being, we don't want it a government edict, because that can always go both ways. So, freedom of speech is freedom of speech, and but we have to combat it somehow and show the American public that these folks really are, they're not telling the truth, and that's what gets me. I mean, they have an agenda, they push their agenda, but they also twist stuff. And NBC is a very good example of that, where certain sound bites are very obviously doctored to push a certain agenda. I mean, and that's just out and out lying. And that you report in a biased way is one thing, but then you start lying to support that, and that to me is absolutely untenable, because where does it stop? And then you sort of say, well, why even have a media, because you can't trust them. But unfortunately, the American people don't see it that way.
Well, it's extremely frustrating, I have to say, and that's one reason I wrote my books, was to try to get a message out in an entertaining way and hopefully make a small dent in the whole problem. But I made a conscious effort over the last several weeks to watch a lot of different networks and try to see what everyone was saying, and it was literally across the board. I cannot say that I saw one news report that really talked about the real issue. It was all vitriol and anger and just hyping up it's all the Republicans' fault, and calling them suicide bombers and arsonists and all the other names. I can't even think of all the names. I mean, it was just over the top in how much they lied, basically, as you're saying, and it's shocking. It was shocking to me.
Yeah, and then I saw there's my unfriendly neighborhood jackass of a congressman who put out his fundraising email with a picture of a fiery cross with E-Party, so basically spelling Tea Party across there, and again just fueling this whole thing of it's the Tea Party to blame for everything, but it isn't. The Tea Party is the one that's trying to straighten it out, and I'm using the Tea Party there loosely to cover a lot of people, but basically anyone who says no, enough is enough, and oh dear.
Well, it was really. I think what was shown, there's two things I think were shown vividly in this whole debate over the last few weeks. One was the amount of people who are dependent on government. If you saw the EBT cards that was shut down or allowed to go unlimited for a while at Walmart, and they emptied the shelves, and people complaining they weren't getting their checks. I mean, there are millions of people that are just totally dependent on government, don't think for themselves. I mean, that's a serious problem. It's going to take decades to turn around. The other thing, is that the media really just it was just shown to be what it really is, which is corrupt. So, but I guess that's all to say there.
But unfortunately, there's still a lot of people, and I mean, I'll be honest, even I've had family members who have come back to me with comments about things, and well, the Tea Party's doing all this bad stuff, and then I explain to them, and they go, "Oh, wait, actually, now you explain it that way, you're right." But they're hearing this constant barrage of the conservatives are bad. Ted Cruz, is messing things up. The Tea Party's all to blame, and as you said, hostage, arsonist, whatever, and they just get this constant barrage, and it seeps into the brain, and
yes,
and so part of the question is there anything we can do about it? And I'm doing a tiny drop in the ocean here. Hopefully there are, of course, there are my fellow hosts on Red State Talk Radio, and that network actually has been going from strength to strength in terms of listenership. So it's growing and growing. So the message is getting out, but we're still, again, just a drop in the ocean compared to the big boys. How do we do that? Can we perhaps persuade a Koch brothers or somebody like that, a Donald Trump to take over a radio?
Did I lose you? Stefan, I think I lost you. Stefan.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry. It seemed to have been a network problem there. Sorry to have left you hanging, but got I don't know what happened.
If it was me or something else. But
no. I had to dial in quickly because it seemed to drop everything. I normally have my phone dialed in as standby as well, and for some reason that wasn't connected either. So not sure. Anyway. So where were we there? Actually,
well, we were talking about the media and how it was exposed during this. I think that people like us are making a difference because I think the level of vitriol that came out in this last episode was so intense and so. I think they're frightened. They can no longer control what's going on. And if you look. Really, this is a marathon, and we're taking bites at the apple. And for this year was the first year, I think, since World War II, that government spending actually on a nominal level went down, and that's due to the sequester.
Yeah.
And the sequester limits are still in place, thank God. So, hopefully we can take another bite at it the next go around and get some more cuts.
Okay. I see actually as well the clock's been ticking, so it's time for me to take a quick commercial break. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that during that dead period because I'd lost my whole switchboard and studio thing here. So I'm going to take that now, Todd. I'll put you on hold for a couple of minutes. Hopefully, we will be back without any further problems. And just stick with us, folks, while we quickly go through our usual commercials here. Got to pay the rent.
Are you paying too much for your car insurance policy? Have you shopped your current plan in the last year? If you haven't, then you probably are paying too much. You could save up to 40% on your current car insurance coverage just by making a free call right now. Doesn't it make good sense to pay less for something you have to pay for anyway? And car insurance is one of those things. You got to have car insurance, whether you have one car or 10 cars. So why not see if you can pay a lot less for it right now? One quick 3-minute call, and you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. We'll compare the leading car insurance companies and get you coverage that could save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Call now for a free quote. Call 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. That's 800-603-9980.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom112.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom112.com. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom112.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And welcome back, folks. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. Thanks for sticking with us. And we had a bit of a network hiccup there as I just entered into the chat room. I think the hotel network here was designed by the same people who are responsible for the Obama Curse website. But anyway, and I'm talking to Todd Wood. Todd Wood, regular listeners will recognize, the author of those great books, Currency and Sugar, and he's working on his next one. And we were talking about media corruption, but we kind of started off, Todd, with the debt ceiling, and you've done more than I've been able to. You said you've looked at the bill, and it's open to interpretation whether it actually gives the president the freedom. Kind of taking that away, it's been propagated that it is for roughly 3 months, February or March, that it's going to be valid until. What should we be doing between now and then? Because we don't really want to come into this same situation. And I've heard a lot of suggestions that what we should do is go back to the good old days when what Congress was supposed to do is actually pass appropriation bills for each and everything, and then once we've done that, we can sort of look and say, well, we've got the appropriations that we want, and therefore, if this is what we've decided we will spend, then yes, this is the debt ceiling that we will have to agree for, let's say, for the next year or something. Would that be a realistic thing to do?
Well, you're going back to regular order. In what most low-information voters in America don't understand is that, per the Constitution, all matters dealing with money are supposed to originate in the House of Representatives. And this, people saying the House is torpedoing, and stopping Obama's agenda, blah, blah, blah. But that's their job. I mean, that's their role, per the Constitution, is to decide how the government is going to spend its money. So it's supposed to start in that House and then go up to the president through regular order. And yes, passing a budget, passing specific spending bills, is something that we should be doing. We really have been just working off continuing resolutions for years now, which, now we're working off a continuing resolution of the law, which is the sequester. So that is a huge bargaining chip for Republicans. And I think that this whole debate, people say we lost. I don't believe that. I think that we have changed the whole message, the whole argument, the whole, discussion on what is going to happen regarding the debt. And now people are, like Ted Cruz, are forcing people to say, no, we're not going to do the things the way we're doing it, and we have to make some changes or we're going to die as a country. So, now we have the sequester as a bargaining chip, and if we can get some long-term entitlement reforms for possibly some spending changes there, that will be significant.
One thing that frustrates me, Todd, and you said rightly, we've had continuing resolutions for quite a while now, number of years, and that's primarily since Dingy Harry and his cronies had the power in the Senate, and basically anything that's come from the House. There has been. Do you agree with me that in a way, it seems that the Senate actually has too much power? Somehow they're overreaching, or one person in the Senate has too much power, because basically Dingy Harry could say, I'm not going to bring it to the floor. And there doesn't seem to be any procedural way to get around him. And that's to me that seems wrong, because that means the House can generate bill after bill after bill, and Dingy Harry just says, I don't like this, I'm not going to put it through. And I don't think that was the intention of the founders. The founders wanted, some tension between the different houses, and there had to be some room for argument and discussion. But basically, there is no argument, there is no discussion. Harry just says, nope, and that's it. How do we break that logjam?
You're right. I guess I'm probably not as knowledgeable on ways to predict that as I should be, but you're exactly right on that. And the thing you have to watch out for, though, is that whatever you change now would change with when the reverse is in, if we had the Senate. So I don't know. That's a interesting subject, which probably has an answer, but I'm not sure I know it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm not sort of saying that we should necessarily be able to force things through, but I would say at the very least this power of the leader of the Senate to basically decide what does and doesn't come to the floor means that the things that the Conservatives, that the GOP is pushing forward, just disappear into a black hole. That doesn't seem right as well. And even if the shoe were on the other foot, why should we then sit on everything and say, okay, whatever those guys push forward, we're just going to ignore it? I don't think that's right. I think the Senate was meant to be more of a debating chamber and provide that moderating factor over what comes from the House, but still it was supposed to be a debate chamber and not a filter, and a filter that's basically controlled by one man. I think just too much power, but who am I? I think I'm like you. I don't know how you could break it, but it doesn't seem right.
Well, I would agree with you, especially with a person like Harry Reid. The man is, calling the Tea Party extremists is, the pot calling the kettle black. It's just ridiculous. I still think that we are winning this battle, but I really do have an opposite view of what you hear in the media, and an optimistic view that the tide is changing. And let's tie this whole battle, let's take it a step further. It started with Obamacare, which is obviously a disaster. I do think they made a tactical error. They should have started out with delaying instead of defunding, because defunding was not going to happen. But if they said, anyway, it doesn't matter, because if they've made the case and stood up, shut down the government, saying we need to delay this law. It's bad, with the aim of getting rid of it. Now it is imploding, and I believe they're going to have to delay it anyway. So think about that. What the political and optics of that are, political ramifications and optics of that are, that they're going to have to delay it after they fought the government shutdown, and the Republicans are going to come out to look, right, which I think that's absolutely stunning.
Okay, time for another quick break here, Todd. So I will put you on hold again, and we'll play a quick couple of commercials, and I'll be right back after these messages.
Listen to Conservative Republican Forum with your hosts, Steve Rosenblum and Daria DiGiovanni. We're ending the silence of the silent majority. Saturday evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern, at www.blogtalkradio.com/Stephen R. Repub. Our guests include politicians, candidates, authors, television personalities, as well as military and intelligence experts. We hope you'll tune in this and every Saturday evening and listen to our rebroadcasts on the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662, 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. And this is Stephen, your Patrick Come Lately. We're into the second half of the show. And tonight we're talking to Todd Wood, the author of two great books, Currency and Sugar. He's working on his third, but we're talking about debt ceiling, about media corruption, and we mentioned earlier reserve currency, which actually for the moment, I believe, Todd, in a way, is perhaps less at risk, other than all these problems around the debt ceiling, but is less at risk because I see that we seem to be actually doing a little bit of energy growth, generating our own energy, so oil and natural gas and things, seems to be having a positive effect. Do you think that will strengthen the dollar a little bit in the short term?
I do, and I think people don't understand what is happening and what is going to come of this energy revolution that we're having. And you saw Saudi Arabia today that was very upset with Obama's diplomatic incompetence, which is entirely a true statement in that he has really bungled our relationships with our allies, including your home country. And the Saudis are very upset, which they should be, but there's another factor here is that we are 20% less dependent on the Saudis than we were only a few years ago, and that's going to continue to be reduced. So their power and their ability to influence our policy is diminishing. And I think you're going to see across the Gulf just so much change as far as geopolitical relationships. And if we were smart, we would maintain those relationships and strengthen them during this time, but we're doing the opposite, which is quite disturbing.
Well, it seems like King Barry, is being friendly with our enemies and unfriendly with our friends. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, of course, if we'd have had a Romney or a conservative president in at this time, then I think the growth of our energy production would have been much, much higher. Because, by all accounts now, there's been enough found that we could be, and you were talking about 20% less dependent on Saudi Arabia, but, in the next 10 to 15 years, we could be 100% less dependent on Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. But that's, if that happened, Todd, I mean, that's also, and again, just looking at it from the financial point of view, that would be a sea change in the world economy. And we can be kind of Rand Paul type isolationists, and we're American, let's just do our own thing and we'll have our own energy. We don't need to worry about the world out there. But if the Middle East goes from being these hugely rich countries, at least part of the population hugely rich, and all of a sudden it all implodes, what's going to happen to those countries? I believe we're going to, the Arab Spring will seem like a Sunday school picnic, and I think there'll be very interesting times in the Middle East, let's put it that way.
I completely agree with you, and it would be great if we didn't have to inject ourselves within the Middle East due to, energy issues. It would give us more flexibility, but that's still going to be a very, very important place in the world. And if we had a competent, State Department and Commander-in-Chief, they would be actively engaging, in a way that would reduce hostilities and protect our allies and really build confidence that no matter what, America was their friend. And that is you're exactly right. They are helping our enemies and, destroying our relationships with allies that have been allies, Saudi Arabia since 1932. Yeah. It's quite stunning. And Iran is going to be the real player in that area. And, Obama just wants to appease them, which we know from history never works out very well.
No, it doesn't. And the question is if we start producing more and more energy and then things go badly in the Middle East, will the House of Sword fall? Iran takes over. If they have nuclear weapons, what's going to happen to Israel? But how far would they go? I mean, looking 20 years down the road, if Iran gets really strong, has nuclear weapons, starts influencing all of the Middle East or all of the, let's say, the Muslim world, is that going to be a huge block which, we could not afford to ignore in 20 to 30 years? And, would that be something that they may be fighting amongst themselves for a while, but at a certain point they will then turn their focus perhaps outside? Would we be at danger? I don't know. Have you given any thought to that?
Well, yeah, I have. I mean, and that's somewhat what I wrote about in Sugar, is the return of the Islamic Caliphate, and it is something they want to do. And yes, there are a lot of tensions between the Sunnis and the Shia primarily, but I think that's exactly right. That area of the world is going to be important for decades to come. And the other thing is obviously China and their currency. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians are actively trying to X out our currency in world trade and other issues. And I mean, it really is a dangerous time in the world, and I've said it before, without America being very strong, the world just gets more and more dangerous. And I think we're seeing that right now, and all this economic weakness just contributes to military weakness and a reduction in our respect around the world, and people not worrying about doing things that are against our interests, militarily or economically or whatever.
Yeah, and as you said, there is weakness, and unfortunately it is both economic and militarily. So, and even though we are still probably militarily the strongest country, that is being eroded almost as fast as our economic situation is, and then what happens? So yeah, it's it's like the Irish prayer. May you live in interesting times. These are definitely interesting times.
Well, yeah, and then I think this election is going to. It's obviously, you say this all the time, but one of the most important in a while, because if we get another socialist administration who does not stand up for American power, does not stand up for what's right, that appeases our enemies, that destroys our economy, grows entitlements, that keeps people dependent on the government and grows the number of people dependent on the government, I mean, we've got some serious problems. So this is really, and that's why I think it's good that we stood up, even if the consequences were bad in the short run for this whole budget fight. That's the kind of leadership that we need to come out of the woodwork and lead this party forward. I mean, we need some strong people, and I hope you have a crop coming.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I think if you look at the 2012 election, at the primaries, so basically in 2010, 2011, the GOP primaries, the ones that surged ahead until they were taken down by the media, and that unfortunately has such a huge impact on everything. But the ones that surged up were the ones who basically stood up. At one time, Michelle Bachmann was kind of at the head of the pack because she was saying, we're going to stand up to Obama, and then she got the rug pulled from underneath her. Donald Trump was up there for a while. Gingrich, every time they get up there, and all the ones that really sort of, if you like, did a Khrushchev and, hammered on the table, and then boom, 3-4 weeks later, they were just so hammered by the media that... That's true. And it's just, again, we there's so much going on, but it all comes back to this media corruption. Is that really going to stop us from doing anything at all? Is that the danger that we'll just get stuck? If we lose the House, for example, in 2014, and heaven help the U.S. because it will not be the USA that we have known for the last 200 and odd years. It'll definitely be gone, and we have a chance to save it. But the question is, will we?
Well, that's the question. I do think the mainstream media is becoming less and less, relevant every year, but they still have an obscene amount of power and the ability to change the narrative in the public discourse, in which what's been shown is they have no qualms about doing it in a very effective way if they see somebody, getting too strong. And I think that's, hopefully we're coming to a tipping point on that. I don't know. It remains to be seen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Good question for after this next break is do you think, and I'll give you some time to think about it, do you think that the American public is beginning to see through the media, number one? But number two, what about the things that you're seeing cracks in the media as well, that they're now beginning to say, hang on, all this Obamacare thing, especially in that area, they are beginning to report that, it's more expensive, that it's not working. And so are they beginning to crack, and are they beginning to realize that maybe they need to be a little more honest? So we'll talk about that after this next break. So folks, just another couple of minutes, and then we'll be back, and we'll hear what Todd has to think on those questions.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, a step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
The path to restoring our republic was laid down by our founding fathers. The principles of freedom, liberty, personal responsibility, and limited government are conservative ideals we will never abandon. America is listening. Grassroots, common sense, conservative talk radio. It's on the internet. Tune in now. Red State Talk Radio, featuring some of the most popular internet talk show hosts in America today. Are you listening? RedStateTalkRadio.com.
Time to take our republic back, folks. Brian Bonner, the Uncooperative Radio Show host, will tell you how. Join us for the ride of your life. Using humor and the facts, we will expose the news that the lamestream media refuses to report. The Constitution is the solution, and we can prove it. Listen in and find out what it means to be an uncooperative citizen of these United States. You can find our show at uncooperativerradio.com, and we are rebroadcast on redstatetalkradio.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And this is Stephen, your Patrick Come Lately. We're into the last segment of the show, talking to Todd Wood. And the question before the break was really, what do we do about the media? Is the American public beginning to see through their lies or not? So that was the first question. What do you think, Todd?
I think yes, not enough yet. I think there's still a block of, who knows what, 100 million people that will never, they're going to have their minds change slowly. And, but yes, I do think the swing vote, the independents are starting to see that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and in the chat room we have Rex Reapy, who's another author, and his FEMA camp series, his hero Zach, has this great thing of being able to break into the media channels, and I often wish we could do that. I could just imagine, even if we could just we could maybe not just video, but just somehow put subtitles over the screen, scroll it up, and just put on there. Obama lied to you about this, that, and the other, right in the middle of Dancing with the Stars or something like that. I just wish we could do something. That would be so great.
Well, and the other, the problem is a lot of Americans are just not into those types of intelligent discussions. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was going to say, even if they do sort of look at it and say, well, what's this about? If we can, of that 100 million, if we can just have 20 or 30% begin to doubt, it would make a huge difference to everything, don't you think?
Well, yeah, and I think this is actually going to be really, really interesting to watch over the next month or two. I don't think there's any way this thing is going to work, and he's trying. Talk about lying. Yesterday his little press conference, which I thought was entirely disgusting and just made me sick, when we had the President of the United States reduced to, selling orange peelers on TV and giving out 1-800 numbers and, buy my product. It was just ridiculous. I had visions of Mr. Microphone commercials, 30 years ago. It was just horrible, and I think a lot of people, you saw the Saturday Night Live and the Daily Show and all those people laughing at it as well. And I'm really uncomfortable with the government trying to tell me something. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to get a rude awakening over the next few weeks and see what's really going on, and then we'll see what happens. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. And then the other part of that question, Todd, was I've noticed that some of the what we call the lamestream channels, at least some of the people on those channels, beginning to actually ask the more serious questions, which they haven't done to date, and report on some of the less positive things. Are they beginning to get a change of heart or conscience, or is it just things are so bad they cannot ignore them?
I think the latter. And you had the New York Times come out, I think it was yesterday or early this morning, basically saying Obama should be held accountable. The book starts with him, and I was shocked when I read the article. It was like someone at the Times, took the red pill and really was forced to see what's going on. And I think that a lot of people are in that same boat. And you could see, if this thing really implodes, you could really see a tipping point as far as progressive socialism in America, and people seeing it doesn't work, and the whole movement could be set back significantly, which I hope is the case.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're getting close to the end of the show. Todd, just a reminder for the listeners, where can they get your books? Amazon is the obvious one, but also you have your own website, I believe.
Yeah, my website is ltoddwood.com. It's Todd with 2 Ds. You can get all the information you need to know there on the books and me and speaking, my speaking I do around the country. And, I've actually, the books are starting to be in airports. They're in Miami, Dulles, soon to be in Atlanta, Philadelphia, and others. So they're out there. If the bookstore doesn't have it in your local neighborhood, they can definitely order them. So anyway, then they're out there. You just got to Google me, and about 5 pages come up now.
If I have time this Thursday, I normally travel on a Thursday evening. If I have time this Thursday at George Bush here in Houston, I'll go take a look and ask them, why don't you have this book?
It's not there yet, but yeah, ask the question. That the problem is that distribution networks, they're monopolies, and to break into those is quite the challenge, which I've learned a lot over the last year.
Okay. Well, anyway, so thanks for coming on. It's been interesting discussion, at least for me. Hope the listeners enjoyed it. Thanks for coming, Todd, and looking forward to the next book. Let me know when it comes out, and I'll have a read, and then we'll get you back on.
Thanks, Stephen. I enjoyed it as always. It's always a great discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, folks. So next week, I will be on the road again, and I'm going to be across the Atlantic. And I'm not too sure about my communications next week. So I'm going to try and run the show. If it doesn't work out, my apologies in advance. But we'll see. Then the week after that, I will still be in the UK, but I should have good network connection for that second week, so I'll definitely be back. So if for any reason it doesn't work out next week, said apologies, but we will get there as soon as we can. So now, folks, it looks like it's time to go. So here's the music, I think. And I say my usual TTFN, please do try and join me for another transatlantic program next week. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stephen, your Patrick Come-Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.